Hey guys, I'm out here in my shop this evening. I've worked all day in here trying to clean it up a little bit. I got a few projects I got to bring inside to work on, a couple lawnmowers, and hadn't really told y'all much about that, but along with all the other stuff we fool with, I do a little small engine repair, chainsaws, lawnmowers, weed eaters, anything like that on the side. I don't fool with four-wheelers and dirt bikes and stuff, but I do the lawnmowers and whatnot. But anyway, this video is for the history of our Dixon Motorsports name. I ended up with the last one showing you a picture of that sport bike that I bought, and all of this was a long time ago, but I'll bring you up to date a little bit for the ones that hadn't watched the first one. But you need to go back and catch number one, and it'll catch you up to date. It's only about 5 minutes. But anyway, I bought an old truck, traded it, realized that I needed something else to drive, so I ended up buying me a motorcycle for my extra transportation. And this is I bought the bike somewhere probably around 97. No, I'm sorry, around 95. Around 95. And I loved the bike. It was fun, but I was real bad about wanting to go fast on it, and I had zero experience on a street bike. So naturally I went and bought one of the fastest ones you could find, and I didn't do real good going around curves and stuff, but I love to stretch it out in a straight line. But one particular day I was headed to a youth event at a church and got on my bike and just ripped it down there and made it about 3/4 of the way. Went around some bad corners and knew that I entered the curve a little too quick and let it get away from me. And this is a story that I have to tell some, and it makes chill bumps come on my arms. I believe wholeheartedly that the day I wrecked my bike, the good Lord just reached down and grabbed me and set me over to the side when I laid it down. I don't have any pictures or anything of it to prove anything, but the day that I left my house, headed down to the church service, I had a pair of blue jeans on, long sleeve shirt, and like one of those lightweight flannel coats. No leather, no bike riding stuff at all. And I laid that bike down running, probably slowing down to probably 50 miles an hour, and went around a bad curve. And I let it get away from me and run off the side of the road, throwed me off of it. I had some pretty bad scarring on my helmet on the back where my head hit the ground. But when I got up, my ears were ringing really bad, like I hit my head on the ground. And I looked around and kind of felt my arms and legs and whatnot, and I didn't have any skin. I wasn't skin up. I wasn't broke up. I didn't even have any tears in my blue jeans or in the sleeves of my jacket. So I don't know how to explain that other than when I laid it down, the good Lord just, the other thing is I don't recall any of this. When I laid it down, I don't remember anything until I got up off the ground and walked back to my bike. And I was probably 15 or 20 feet away from where I landed to where my bike was. And the only way I can explain it is, as it laid down, the good Lord just grabbed me and held me up off of it until it stopped sliding and set me down. I mean, I don't know how else to tell that. I couldn't go out the end of my shop right now, take off running, and slide out there on that dirt and not skin my britches up or tear my elbows up or break something. That's just from running. I laid it down running somewhere around 50 miles an hour, maybe faster. Not sure. I was slowing down, but I don't think I got slowed down too much more than that. So, you say what you want to say, but I believe in the good Lord, and I know that He's brought me through a lot of things, and that's one that sticks out as could have been a death ride, and I was not skin up, messed up at all. So anyway, I get back on my bike. I did get it cranked. I got it out of the ditch. The left-hand side of it was wiped clean. Nothing left on it. So I shifted gears by hand. Peg was broke off. Gear shift lever was bent under where the peg should be. Mirror's gone. Handlebars bent. Blinkers are gone. All the body work on the left-hand side is gone. And I ride it back to the house about 15 or 20 minutes or so. And I pull up. I was young at this time also. I was just fresh out of, I don't know, I was fresh out of high school and probably, I don't know how old I was, but anyway, my dad was working over that night, and he never approved of me really having that bike. And he worked over that night, and I come in and just was sick at what went on. So I ended up putting my bike up. I saved up all the money I could and replaced everything on it, got it back like brand new. It cost me several $1,000s out of my pocket to fix it. And I had to tell my dad the next morning when he come in from work that I would try to do the right thing and sell my bike before it killed me. So I fixed the bike, sold it to a man over in Pensacola, Florida. He come picked it up, and that was the end of the bike story. So that from the time I bought it probably till I sold it, I may have had it a couple of years, maybe a year and a half. I don't know. It wasn't very long. But anyway, that's the motorcycle tale. And so after I wrecked that bike, I bought somewhere during this time, I bought I think it was an 88 model Pontiac GTA, basically a Trans Am Firebird. But it had naturally had a hopped up motor in it, had machine work done. It was a very quick car for the day. It outrun all kind of stuff on the street as long as it was just a street car. It wasn't a race car by no means, but in its day it was pretty fast, red light to red light. So I owned it for a while. It had some electrical issues and kind of scared me a few times, got me away from the house, couldn't get it back home. Broke a few valve springs, so I felt like whoever done the motor work before I got it had some stuff that was messed up, and the car just kind of scared me, so I ended up selling it after a short amount of time. I bought a brand new GMC Sonoma step side, one of the first ones that was ever sold on the Mississippi Gulf Coast. Had a 4.3 liter V6 in it with a 5-speed. Solid black, 16-inch wheels, like a sporty little truck. And I owned it for a couple of years, and we ripped and run, raced up and down the roads, Airport Boulevard in Mobile, Alabama. Lots of miles raced up and down the road in that truck. And it was just a street vehicle, nothing else, but it was fun to drive. Uh, Somewhere around this time, this is about 96 or so now. I bought, the truck was a 96 model. Somewhere around here, around this time, I really was getting into racing more and more and messing with my old truck, the one that we talked about in the past, and was really starting to look at doing things to it to make it more into a race truck instead of a street truck, I guess you'd say. So we went to the track for the first time in that old truck, and I was out here cleaning the shop this evening, today, and actually while I was picking up a bunch of old stuff and throwing it away, I found my original time slip from where I was at Mobile Dragway. I can't hardly see the date. November the 8th, 1997. My brother was down there with me because he wrote the number 1 on the top of this time slip. First time I ever officially went down a legal racetrack, and I thought that was cool that I still had the time slip, and I'll put it up and keep it for as long as you can see the letters on it or the numbers on it. But we ripped and run with my old truck, sometimes in the street, sometimes at the racetrack, and this goes on for years, and end up blowing a head gasket on my old truck, playing with it out on the road. Pretty sure my brother was driving it when it done it, and he had also driven this truck. He graduated school in '94. I think he drove this truck. We talked about it the other day. He drove my orange truck and the race truck, which was still just a street driving truck. But he drove both of them to school whenever he was in high school. And so this was years on down the road. We had already made upgrades, changed rear gears, carburetors, all kind of stuff. Tried different tires out. And we messed the motor up, and I decided to just build a complete new motor with what I had to work with. And I thought it was a standard bore block in my old truck. Had it at the machine shop, and it was already a 60 over 1968 model 427. It was a 390 horse original motor out of a Corvette. And when it was 60 over, that kind of hurt my feelings, because I thought I had a standard bore motor that I could keep for years and years, make multiple rebuilds on. But at 60 over, I was very limited on time, or the amount of runs or whatever, because I couldn't rebuild it as many times as I thought I was going to be able to. So I took it to a buddy of mine that actually worked across the way from where I work at. He done this kind of stuff on the side. He was able to go to a machine shop that could do engine work. And so over the next year or so, I don't know, I can't remember how long it took me. This stuff, building these motors, was very expensive to me, because I wasn't making that much money, and not like being on the road working. I was working in a shop probably for just, a little above minimum wage for the first couple of years I was there. But when I was at the shop, when I finished up my duties of driving the delivery truck and sweeping floors, I had a chance to move to the fab shop, and that's what started my welding fabrication career. Now once I got in the fab shop, my money started moving up pretty quickly. But starting off with, I didn't have a whole lot of money to throw at all this stuff, because I'm buying motorcycles, cars, trucks, trying to build a race truck. I mean, it was stretching me pretty thin. So anyway, that gets us to that gets us to building a motor for the old truck that I still own today, but we don't move it. It's just sitting in the yard. And so in the process of building the new motor, and this is somewhere around 97 or 98, I bought a 1992 model Corvette. Well, I sold the Trans Am, sold the GTA, and bought a 92 model Corvette, completely stock. It only had like 30,000 miles on it. Basically like a brand new car. It was probably one of the finest vehicles I've ever owned. I really babied that car for a little while. Oh, and not to forget about this, we're in the process of trying to build a shop during all this time. So I'm spending money on building materials, I'm spending money on race parts, and I just bought another car. So and this was all before I was married, so that was the only reason I was able to pull some of that off. But I keep the Corvette in the shop that we had started for a while. I wouldn't leave my car out. It wouldn't get wet. I just babied it. I wouldn't hardly run it up any at all on the RPMs. Just let it shift easy. I just used it as a weekend riding car. And one day I just decided that I was going to let it eat a little bit, and it felt really, really good. Even cars in 1992, this car had a little better than 300 horsepower. I think it was like 305 or 310 horsepower from the factory, and it was comparable to the GTA I had with the modified motor. So this car and the GTA felt real similar, but the Corvette was just a lot nicer car. So we get to going back to Mobile, to a place, for some of you that's not from around here where I live at, a place called Airport Boulevard. And it's just back in the early 90s, mid 90s, it was like drag race central. You know, I mean, it was any Friday night or Saturday night you wanted to ride to Mobile, there was people just out cruising, trying to hit the red lights just to get a race. So this goes on like all the time. We wouldn't even load up and leave the house until sometimes 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night, and we go down there and spend to 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning ripping and running up and down Airport Boulevard. So there was a lot of miles and a lot of gas burnt up and down that road. And we did this with the Corvette. I say we, my brother was with me a lot of these times. So we start messing around and going to the racetrack on Friday nights instead of Saturday nights. Saturday nights was a regular bracket program. Friday nights they just had test and tune and like street type racing and whatever. Well, every now and again they would host a street class kind of bracket race. So we go down there and get to racing on the track in my Corvette week in and week out. Well, the first couple of times we go, we fool around and win a race. And that really just hooked me into bracket racing, because then it started turning into a game. Not only did we get to drive fast up and down the racetrack, but there was like a numbers game that come along with bracket racing. So I won't go into that real in depth right now, but for some of you that's interested, I'll try to do a video in the future about what bracket racing is. And I mean, there's tons of other videos out there telling you, but I'll do one. And kind of fill you in on what bracket racing is. And it really it hooked me. And I was in a street car, and it was fun. It was really fun chasing the numbers, trying to do everything you can to keep your dial in right and all that. So I'll address that in another video. But during all this time of us racing the Corvette, the motor for the truck finally gets finished, and we put it in. Some other buddies of mine come over, and I got a few pictures I'll put on here. Come over to the shop. We put the motor in the truck, and over the next little while we get all the bugs worked out. Truck runs great. It probably turned into it was probably a 400 horsepower, 450 horsepower motor, the way that I was driving it around on the street. After the rebuild, we bumped the compression up, started running 110 octane race gas, went to a 410 rear gear, still run a turbo 350, and we could drive it around pretty easily and run we could run 770s or 750s at Mobile. Just to give you some kind of example, back in the day, my Corvette run like 880s or so, 850s to 880s, in that range. So my truck is nearly a second faster than my Corvette, and my truck is not anything really at all. This is just still barely one step above just getting in it and driving it down the road without any problems, other than paying extra money for race gas. When I was buying it, I could buy race gas for $4.25 a gallon. So this is 2023. We run alcohol now, so I don't know what race gas costs, but the last time I heard some numbers, seemed like I remember them being in the $10 to $12 a gallon range. So race gas got really stupid on cost. So we eventually swapped over to alcohol and started running. But I'll go into that later on. So anyway, we build this new motor for the truck. It starts running in the 7s, in the 1/8 of a mile, probably about 88 miles an hour or something like that, somewhere around in there. And that was all good, but I wanted to start bracket racing more seriously. So I started doing things to make bracket racing what this whole truck was meant to be, or meant for. Now granted, this truck has no roll cage. It is not a purpose-built vehicle for safety's sake, but the way the truck is set up, we put different springs in the front, different shocks, all kind of stuff that you can't see and don't know about, that makes the truck work really good. And I got to where we could bracket race with it, and I got to be to where I was pretty competitive anytime I went to the racetrack. So we ran in the street class in 99, I think, 1999. I started running in like February or March, and I borrowed a trailer. I used the old truck that we drove back and forth to work to pull my trailer with. And the first days of us going were really a joke. The trailer I borrowed had no lights. We were having to wire up lights on my old truck just to get the tail lights to work so we could get to and from the racetrack. So it don't take very many times of that, and I started looking around trying to figure out what I was going to do for a trailer, what I was going to do for a truck. So over the next year or so, we kind of get all that worked out. I end up buying a dually 1 ton to pull a trailer that me and Daddy built, and kind of had a whole lot better setup once we got up and running, and I knew I wanted to go do this pretty much every weekend that I possibly could. So we're racing the street class on Saturday nights during normal bracket racing time. I had to run a treaded tire for the class, and I had to have mufflers on it. So I've got probably one of the quicker trucks in the street class. Sometimes there'll be somebody faster, but not very many times. And we really started doing good in bracket racing. And we chased the numbers. We kept up with the weather. We tracked every run we made. And I ran in the point series the first year I raced, and I ended up winning the points at the end of the year, and was granted track champion in 1999 in the street class, sportsman or whatever you call it. So I was scared to death to make the move to bracket 2, which is just a regular foot brake type class. I think Mobile called it Pro. Super Pro was the first class. The foot brake class was like Pro. So I asked around, hey, I'd ask some of these more experienced people, if I make the move from the street class over to bracket 2, the Pro class, can I compete with, and I asked like the lights I cut and what my old truck runs, and they were like, yes, you'll be fine. So I was scared to death to make the move. It cost me more money weekly to run. Entry fees were higher, and lots more cars there running, more competition, and some great bracket racing was in Mobile, Alabama in the early 90s, mid 90s, right on into the 2000s, and very stiff competition for bracket racing. So I moved to bracket 2, and I can't remember the time frame. I only raced a couple of weeks, I think, and I won my first bracket 2 race, foot brake class. I had been winning. If I won in the street class, sometimes it might pay $75 to $100. That's it. That's all the money I'd win. Well, the first night I won in the foot brake class, I think it paid, $600 or $800. So I thought that was just the grandest thing, And so every now and again the track would hold $1,000 foot brake race, which was a big deal then. Sometimes a $2,000 race. And over the years, I won a couple of the $1,000 ones. Won one of the $2,000 ones one time, and they were just sporadic through the year. It wasn't all the time. But I ended up getting in the points race for the bracket 2 class. Oh, one other thing, when I first started, there was one thing I done that for me was a big deal. It may not have been a big of a deal for anybody else, but I won 2 weekends consecutively without a loss. No buybacks, no nothing. I just won rounds, and normally it took about 7 rounds to win a race at Mobile, 7 to 8 rounds, and I won 14 rounds of racing and won two weekends back to back, and I won a month of points to put me in a chance to be a track champion again, and I runnered up one time, and I think I finished like 3rd or 4th one time, but I never won the track championship in bracket 2, but always was able to compete for it. One thing I had wrote down, kind of like stats or whatever, back in the early days, I went to 10 final rounds before I lost my first final round, and I think I ended up, between Mobile and racing at Leachville, I think I had probably been to 25 or 30 final rounds. I don't know what my record is. I kind of lost track of that, but for the short time that I was racing, I think I done really good at it and had fun with it. very competitive. Any time I pulled up at a track, it didn't matter where I was at. I honestly felt like I had a chance to win either money or win the race. Either way, go far enough to get a little money, or just win the whole thing. And I had done that on numerous occasions. So anyway, that kind of gets you caught up to my first years of the old truck ripping and running and racing and whatever. So I'm going to end this one right here. It's already 30 minutes into it. So this will be number 2. We'll move on to number 3.